Hey everybody, what's up? Just drinking me some eggnog here. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Walmart and a lot of stores are starting to sell this. This is Durango's version. Supposed to be good and tastes good. I think she does. But again, it's kind of surprising to sell the eggnog lately. A lot earlier than usual. But, you know, once again, I was cruising through a certain site. You'll see the links down below. And once again, some people are, well, let's just put it this way, not too happy about some of the things going on. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people at Archie and a lot of people like Ian Flynn and Paul Kaminsky, and I'm sure even those people at Sega, I'm sure they pretty much realized that what was going to be presented in Countdown to Chaos and what was going to be presented at the New York Comic-Con yesterday, which is still currently going on, the convention that is, would get mixed reactions. Now, it's great that Archie Comics is, I will say this, it's great that Archie Comics is bringing in a lot of these fan artists to work on some of their comics. More importantly, their covers, or more importantly, their issues if they feel like it. But again, you know, it's no real surprise that you know, it still get this whole redesigns and stuff still get a mixed reaction from people. I mean, it's no surprise whatsoever. I mean, you literally have taken characters like this. I don't know if you can see that from here. Let me check if you can see that. Yeah, you can see it, but you literally take characters from here and you turn them essentially, as some people say, into Sega-fied versions of who they are. And not a lot of fans are too thrilled with that. And, you know, one can understand how people feel sometimes, but the truth is, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, sometimes a change happens and it's here to stay. You know, it's here to stay, and you know, there's not much we could really do about it. You know, I remember when X-Men, the animated series, came out in the 90s, when this series came out here. When this series came out, and I remember the difference between it and its counterpart, which was the comic it was based off of. The designs, and more importantly the members on the team, were different, and sometimes the design of the characters were different. You know, you take a look at, let's say, someone like Jean Grey, for example, and when the cartoon started, her design was very similar. Color, uniform was everything. Uniform and stuff was very similar to, well, not similar, but basically her uniform was the same in the comics as it was in the show. The only difference was, in the show, she had a ponytail sticking out of her headpiece of her uniform. Well, in the comic, her hair was just completely her hair was completely let down. There was no ponytails or anything. So you say to yourself, well, what is that? Now you're probably asking yourself, well, what does that have to do with the redesigns? Well, when we got into the last season of the show, and obviously you could tell the show was given over to different animators, to a different animation team. You could tell the difference there. A lot of the characters got redesigns, some to match what they look like in the comics. Jean Grey was one of those examples. Her redesign basically kept her the same as what you had seen before. The only big difference was that her hair was let down just like in the comics. There was no ponytail. And that ended up staying the way it was for the rest of that season. It didn't change back. It didn't, it didn't change back at any time. It just remained the way it was. The same goes for the redesigns and makeovers of, let's say, Jubilee, even Rogue and Storm and Wolverine and Beast. They all got slight redesigns because of not just being done by a different animation team, but because it was the last season. And pretty much, I think a lot of people knew on this animation team that some fans were wondering why the cartoon in the first 5 seasons didn't match up with the comics at times, why the design of the characters didn't match up with the comics. So again, it's not the first. So again, it's not the first time a show or characters after many years or a few years or whatever get changed up. It's not. They get changed up to match what they're based off of, whether we like it or not. Now again, though, there are some fans that are not too happy about it. Some that still have mixed reactions, and some that used to have mixed reactions but are more or less finally saying, you know what, looks like these designs are here to stay. Let's just see what happens. So you might ask yourself, well, what do other fans? You might ask yourself, well, what are the fans saying? Well, I've already given you an example of what some fans have talked about. These next 2 fans have similar gripes, if not similar rants. They did, stuff they just want to say. Now, this person, about 9 hours and 45 minutes ago, said this about what he dubbed Archie brand drama. This is what this person said about nearly 10 hours ago, which he dubbed Archie brand drama. This is what he said, and I quote, "He and another individual were discussing the needless drama surrounding the whole quote-unquote Cyber Sally debate when this came to me. And he continues on, and I quote, "Archie, and more specifically Flynn, seem to have 2 go-tos for causing drama. They are, of course, exceptions, but these are the most common. 1. Something bad happens to Sally. Now, I can see why this happens a lot. One. Something bad happens to Sally. Now, I can see why this happens a lot. Sally is Sonic's default girlfriend, so something bad happening to her is an easy way to motivate him. The problem is that in the 20 years that this comic has been going, none of the writers ever created something better than Sonic/Sally, and constantly screwing with them has simply become a thing. I have no doubt that soon enough Sally will fall victim to something, and Sonic will mope for an issue before charging off to help her. It's not interesting anymore. It's just boring and predictable. Furthermore, it's also pretty much a case of quote-unquote women in refrigerators. Looking back on the Mecha Sally arc, it is more guilty of this. Looking back on the Mecha Sally arc, I'm correcting myself there. He continues to say, this individual, and I quote, "It is more guilty of this than I previously thought. For those of you who aren't aware of this disgusting trend of fiction writing, it's when something horrible, normally death or worse, happens to a female character but it adds nothing to the story on account of them being dead or worse. It only serves to further the development of the male partner. Mecha Sally caused a lot of drama for Sonic and a little for Ken, Monkey Kong, before he got brainwashed. But with the retcon, it turns out that it added nothing to Sally's character. Basically, Sally has turned into a bot. Sally was turned into a bot gutted and forced to fight her friends and loved ones so that Sonic could be given more development, which would be completely ignored shortly because of Sega. Okay, now what this individual is trying to say about his women about the whole Mecha Sally situation being associated with the women's in refrigerator deal when it comes to comics and other media is basically that's what he feels. Basically, basically he and others feel that that's exactly what the Mecha Sally arc was for Sally. That it was just a long-term, nearly 2 year or nearly 2.5 year arc that went nowhere because of what's about to happen. But others will disagree, and I digress. He continues on, and I quote, quote unquote, insert character here is now a villain. Basically, Sally is now a villain. I'll try to, okay, basically this is what they start off with number 2, and I quote, insert character here is now a villain. I'll try to make this quick. I like fallen heroes. They make good villains. However, I don't like the example in Archie. All too often we see a character turn evil or betray their friends through various poorly established ways, only for it to end up being detrimental to the character. Fiona is barely recognizable. SBO's betrayal meant nothing in the end. Jeffrey's character had to be retconned to make it work. Mecha Sally had no personality at all. The roboticized masters were an amazing waste of time, ink, and paper, just like the story they appeared in. Then. I have no problem with characters switching sides. I like some more repentant villains, though, that could create some drama, and it would at least be new. But when it's done like this, it's just no. Mecha Sally could easily have been an amazing main villain if she retained her sentence. But nope, she's a living prop. Nagas could have been revived without Jeffrey, but nope, kill Hershey off and retcon his backstory to make this fit. And Flynn didn't even try to use what was already established about Fiona as a foundation to build on. Interesting fact, I've done that. Kiva has too. It's not hard. Try it yourself sometime. He just took a wrecking ball to her personality and brought in F-I-N-O, Fiona in name only. Somebody tell me that I'm not the only one who finds it bloody repetitive. I'll provide a link down below if you couldn't understand what I was saying there. But basically what he's just pretty much saying is Archie, unlike let's say Marvel or DC or even Image, he pretty much feels that Archie Comics and Ian Flynn, mostly probably Ian Flynn, we can't really say, are just not good. Are just not that good when it comes to turning a good guy or good girl bad. They're not good at the whole women in refrigerator concept. And here's why. Here's why. When you take a look at some of the stories throughout the 20-year run of this comic, they pretty much feel it's been a repetitive deal. Unless you have a reason, in their eyes, unless you have a reason for the character turning bad, you know, what's the point? Now, some people may argue, and it's been argued, that when Sally was doing the Mecha Sally deal, it was more like, hey, you know, some will argue, yeah, there was a point. You know, she was fighting against her friends and all that. And, you know, people understand that. People will understand and say, yeah, she was fighting against her friends, but what was the real point if we couldn't, let's say, see an inner struggle within of her trying to gain her free will, trying to prevent herself from listening to Eggman, prevent herself from doing these things? You know? And again, it's all about the fact that in the eyes of some, if it's not going to be done right, why do it? What was the point? You know, like with Fiona, I'll give a good, you know, I've agreed, you know, I don't like the fact that they turned her bad. But I think in Ian Flynn's mind, in my opinion, in his mind, he pretty much wanted to give Sally a rival, which would be a little bit more noticeable, and I guess you could say, basically somebody not just noticeable and known, but somebody I think from within her world. You know, and I just think he just wanted to give Sally a rival, wanted to make Fiona the Scourge to Sally, just like Scourge is to Sonic. You know, that's what she wanted to make it. But again, we can't really say that either. I mean, I even think sometimes he just wanted to create another villainess. Or just an anti-hero, an anti-heroine, if you will. So, but we'll just have to wait and see. But in my opinion, I do agree that the whole Fiona deal, even though some would say, well, they were given reason, she wasn't around for several issues. That is true, but still, in the eyes of some, it just doesn't make sense. You know, it's like you had the previous writers building her up to be something good for the team, for the Freedom Fighters, and all of a sudden you have Ian Flynn swoop in and say, nope, not going to happen. But hey, Ian Flynn, I'm not defending the guy. But Ian Flynn is not the first writer of a comic book not the first writer to come in during their debut year, and do exactly what he's done to a character. No one has done that. He has. So, he has. So he basically did what he had to, I guess, to show that he's not playing any favorites. But I digress. It's just, basically from what this guy says, it seriously is, basically it's just, basically people just feel that if Archie Comics is going to do the whole let's turn good guy, bad guy, or good girl, bad girl scenario, that they need to do it right and it needs to have meaning. When Sally did the Mecha Sally deal, again, like I said, people will defend it and say that there was meaning behind it. Yeah, okay, there was meaning. But what fans, I guess, were trying to say is, look, give us a reason to care about it. Give us probably a visual of her struggling. Like, her not wanting to do this, but she's doing it. Because she can't control herself. Gives like some kind of, I've even used this for an example a couple of times when I've talked about this on video. Give us a visual look inside her mind. Like, let's say you show her sort of like in this padded cell where she's only looking outside these that the only way she can look out is through these barred windows, and she's seeing her mecha self doing all this, and there's nothing she can do. That would have been a visual that, at least one visual that would have gotten people to care about it, or something like that. And there are people that have done this. There's one person that did a picture which is based around, I think it was what, 238 or something like that, 238 I believe, 238 or no, actually about, no, it was like 239, 240, when Sally was being ordered to go kill her brother, which again I strongly believe was the starting point, along with 237 and 238, of her regaining her free will and going in the direction that Ian Flynn originally wanted to go in. But point is, there was a picture some fan did where, based on that concept, where you have Elias and his wife and their kid asleep in bed, and you see Mecha Sally, or Sally in her mecha form, just right there in the doorway, blades out and everything. But then you see this kind of almost holographic picture of her, above the Mecha Sally. There's like holographic image of her crying out and like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, no, kind of like just crying out in pain that she doesn't want to do this. You look that image up on DeviantArt, it will get you. It's strong, it's powerful. It's a very powerful image. But the point is, that kind of gave you an idea of what fans wanted to be. Some fans wanted for at least this story, this arc, to have some meaning. There was even another person I think the Ace of Speed, I believe, Ace of Speed 98 or 38 or something like that. And they did a picture, and I've mentioned this before, they did a picture based solely off of what they saw at the end of Sonic Heroes. Now in Sonic Heroes, we know that Metal Sonic is back, but he becomes Ultimate Metal Sonic, or something like that, towards the end. He becomes like some kind of dragon creature. Well, Ace of Speed kind of got this idea from that. And they figured, you know what? And again, this proves to you that even someone like Ace of Speed, who's a good artist, feels that more could have been done with Sally's character, and thus, as this individual put it, make her a main villain for at least that arc. A strong main villain for at least that arc. And what Ace of Speed did was he drew a picture of Sally in her mecha form, going ultimate, just like Metal Sonic did in Sonic Heroes. And you could throw out various reasons of why that happened. Let's say maybe she got in contact with all the emeralds, and boom, there you go, just like Metal Sonic did. But the point is, even Ace of Speed, when they drew that picture of her going into ultimate mecha mode, they feel would have been had more meaning, and would have made the story in their minds more meaningful than just getting what we did. So, but again, I'll provide a link to this person's video down below, and you guys can check it out for yourselves. But again, it's just people giving their opinions, and everybody's got a right to it. And if some people feel that Archie Comics became repetitive with what they were doing, then that's their opinion. But do you agree? Comment below. And God bless. Take care. Link will be provided.